Business Foundations for Mums with me, Kate Butcher, is the podcast to listen to if you are a mum who is ready to launch your business, not sure where to start, or wanting to turn that sideline into something more serious. It will be full of practical tips, mindset advice, and inspirational and honest interviews with mums who are juggling business and motherhood, supporting mums in business to turn your dream into a reality. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Business Foundations for Mums. Today I'm welcoming another inspirational mum in business to talk to us all about her business, how she juggles it all. So today, please welcome Sarah McCalden. So Sarah, before we get started, please could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, a little bit about how that your family life fits in with all of that, and give us a bit of a background, please.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And so I've been in business in my current business since 2018, and I wanted to start my business because I actually really wanted to home educate my children. I really didn't agree with the schooling system. I had been in a lot of schools, and I just didn't like what I saw. I knew that what I was seeing wasn't just in one school, and it was like a culture. And so that's what got me started, got me into business. And then I very quickly became very successful in my business. I earned a lot of money, and I didn't know what to do with the money, like how should I be doing the best thing with my money. And so I started to learn about this. Nobody was telling me what to do. I didn't find any kind of information out there. I didn't know who to speak to, or none of my friends or peers knew also had those same sorts of questions. So a couple of years in, I decided, right, well, I'm gonna find out what to do, myself. I didn't know who to trust, but I trusted myself. So I started something called Money School and the Money Club, and it was really about getting financially literate. And along with that, I got some qualifications in, business coaching, and I became I had been studying with Bob Proctor and Jack Canfield, got certified in Jack Canfield's Success Principles work. And so my business has just grown, from that. So really what I do is I help women to earn and keep more money, learn what to do. And also it's about the self-development process, I suppose, that you go through in order to reach a higher level in your life and in your financial life.
Absolutely. And you mentioned briefly that a big part of this for you was that you decided that you wanted to homeschool because you didn't believe in the education system. So how old are your children now, if you don't mind sharing that?
Yeah, sure. They're 12 and 15 now.
Gosh.
And I would say that we don't homeschool, we home educate.
Right.
Because there's a difference. It's not like school at home.
Yeah.
It's very different. Like, I feel like education can happen all the time, is happening all the time. It's not just something that we do at home. I'm really passionate about children's play as well. In fact, I was so passionate that I went back to university in 2015 and got a postgraduate diploma in professional studies in children's play. And I've done lots of advocating for children and their right to play over the years. And so that's really just a really big part. I don't see play as the opposite to learning. Play is learning.
And actually, we see that with much younger children in the traditional school system, that actually they learn through play, don't they, at the early stages? But then the play, I suppose, is withdrawn in traditional schooling, and the learning becomes more formalized. Would you say that's
Yeah,
what you were
yeah, I
seeing?
do. Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that I just didn't agree with.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I just didn't like that. I didn't like that kind of power dynamic between the staff and the students. I didn't like the shouting, you know, all of those things. I didn't want my children to be in that system, but they were. And it was a really motivating thing for me to find a way to get out of it. You know, and also I felt like myself, you know, I didn't think that I could earn a lot of money. I really didn't believe that. You know, there have been several times in my life where I haven't thought that I was able to do this or that thing that other people are doing. And you know, it's a very kind of disempowering way of being. But I think that I think a lot of people, you know, don't believe this or don't believe that about themselves. But I somehow I just started thinking like, well, what's the difference between me and like Richard Branson? You know, like I was doing 3 different things. I was studying for that postgraduate diploma. I was working for a charity in Brixton, working with young people with disabilities. And I was working at an adventure playground in Kennington. And so that was to do with my getting my postgraduate degree. But you know, like all of those things were quite low paid and were you know, I thought to myself, God, what am I going to have to do to earn more money? Like this degree, I was actually studying for a master's, but I stopped at that postgraduate diploma bit in 2018. And I thought, well, that's only going to give me like, you know, that, you know, £40,000 kind of max that I could earn a year. And that's not really, it's not the right amount of money to be able to give my children the things that I want to give them. And I thought, well, God, Richard Branson isn't getting paid by the hour, and none of these other people who are very wealthy are getting paid by the hour. Like what, or you know, they're not getting an annual salary. Like their money makes them money. They're, you know, and I started to open my mind to that kind of way of thinking. And it was actually a network marketing business. I didn't know what network marketing was. In the personal development industry that I got myself involved in. And through that business, I learned about Bob Proctor. I was like, who's this Bob Proctor guy? I listened to his book. It's called You Were Born Rich, on the train on my way into work. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is so inspiring. So I signed up for his coaching program. And that really changed everything for me. It allowed me to realize that it's my mind that is affecting everything in my life. You know, it's my mind that's like can make it happen for me, or it can stop me. And I mean, it was a really powerful kind of realization, and that really allowed me to have like that tunnel vision, you know, put the blinders on and really go for it, so that I could take my children out of school. And so I like I said, I earned a lot of money in that business, and that allowed me to take my family on a round the world trip for 4 months, starting in December 2018. And that event, that company, they had some events in Australia, in Thailand, and So I went to those events, I spoke at those events. So it was also like a business trip as well, and met with various people, and in all of the places that we visited. And so that was really the kind of beginning. And I think I've gone on a really big tangent there.
Tangents are great because actually that's where often a lot of the value is, isn't it? You sort of find that you go into something and there's some real gems in there that we can learn from that. But I think the mindset thing that you're talking about there, that's just such a huge, important, key part of business. And I think it was it Tony Robbins? There's a Tony Robbins quote about it, and he talks about the fact that successful business is 80% to do with your mindset and only 20% to do with your strategy and the business that you actually do, which I think is just so true. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand the benefits of mindset and how important it is. And if somebody was coming to you and was really struggling with mindset, what sort of advice would you give them about how to go about starting to shift their mindset?
Well, I mean, there's such a kind of, there's loads of things that you can do, I think. But I think that the main thing would be focusing on where can you take more responsibility. Like that's really like the foundational sort of principle. Like that's what everything else is based on. And I think about that in terms of my own personal journey. Like a few years ago, I never would have asked to be on podcasts or said yes to any requests, or done any of that. Like I had a really big problem, I suppose, a challenge with being able to express myself verbally. And it sounds really strange. Maybe it sounds strange. I don't know. Maybe other people are the same or have had similar kind of struggles. But I really struggled with speaking. I was fine in like a small group or talking kind of one-to-one. That wasn't a problem. But as soon as I was around too many people, whatever that meant for me, I couldn't tell you, or people who I felt maybe intimidated by, I had that kind of, it's been a journey for me, this, like I was someone who had really low self-esteem and low self-worth. And, that really affects everything. Like I felt like I was really unimportant. And I mean, if we go back in time in my life, I did have a drug addiction, a life-threatening drug addiction when in my 20s. I mean, that was a long time ago now. But it was that left me in that kind of state of mind. And it's been a journey to kind of move forward. And I think, well, gosh, when I realized that I had to take responsibility for me and what I really want to do, and I felt like I am meant for more. Like there's more to life than what was going on for me at the time. And that wasn't just one point in my life. I've thought that often. And I thought, but nobody is, I won't be impactful. I won't be able to share my message if I'm silent, like, and that's still a journey that I'm on, right? I'm on the journey. And so it's about where your own comfort zone is, where you feel safe. And you don't need to take massive risks. But if you just step a little bit outside your comfort zone, often enough to make that become your comfort zone, then you can take another little step out and do those things that like we all know. I think if we tap into our intuition, if we can be quiet enough at certain times in the day, we can really know what we need to do next. Like, what is the next step on my journey? What's the next step on your journey? Like, what do you need to do? And what little teeny tiny step can you take to get yourself there? And that's it. And those little teeny tiny steps over a period of time lead to massive change, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's such a powerful way of looking at it. Just stepping just that little bit out of your comfort zone and repeating and repeating and repeating until that becomes your comfort zone. And then you have another layer, don't you? It's constantly pushing the circle further and further out of that layer of comfort, and just slowly but surely increasing what you're comfortable to do. I think that's a really good bit of advice, a really huge bit of advice.
Yeah. And sorry, I was just going to
Sorry.
say, like, when I was in Thailand, so when I went on that round the world trip with my family so that was early 2019. At that point, I was at an event for this company, and they didn't tell me that they were going to put me on stage or anything, but like, we got back from a break, and then they asked me to go up on the stage, and I looked at my husband and was like, oh my God. And I got up there, and she handed me the microphone, and I didn't even know like what to do with it. Like, it felt heavy. I turned around and I faced the back of the room, and she put her hand around me and turned me around to face the audience. And she was there, and she asked me some questions, and then I just started to speak. Like, it just all came out, and at the end everybody stood up and clapped, and that was I was like, what? It was a bit confusing, but at the same time, I realized afterwards, when people started coming up to me and saying, God, that was so inspiring, and whatever, that okay, like, I can really make a difference for people, like, that was a really powerful moment for me in my life. It was just like a small moment, but it was a really powerful moment.
It sounds like an amazing moment. Fantastic. And I think having that realization that other people are looking to you for the inspiration, that's always something that is very empowering. That's, yeah, wonderful to have that. Definitely. Would you say that you are an introvert?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I feel like in fact, my friend Fiona Stoltzer, she's a human design expert, and she has done my human design stuff, and in that, uh, she kind of advises me like on a daily basis, almost. And she said to me, you need time. And I think, everything in that, all of that human design stuff it's just so true for me. Like, it's unbelievably, it really resonates with me. And so for my whole life, I have been definitely an introvert. And I think maybe sometimes shyness is confused with being an introvert. I would definitely say I was a shy person as a child, and never put myself in a situation where I needed to speak, or actively avoided those situations even. But it's not that. It's like having time for myself, like being alone. I can be around people, yes, and I enjoy being around people, and I like connection, and I also need my own time. And basically Fiona confirmed that for me.
Yeah. And one of the definitions of introversion is that you re-energize by spending time on your own.
Yeah.
Whereas being with people can, whilst it doesn't mean you can't enjoy it and find benefit from it, but it can be quite emotionally draining
Yeah.
a lot of the time. And so how does it feel then putting yourself out there and being visible and pushing those boundaries as somebody who is an introvert?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, and I think I'm in the process of discovering that. I think I need to do more. Like I know that I need to say yes to opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Say yes to opportunities, and allow myself the time. But also, you know, I think for quite a long time I couldn't discern between my own fear
Mm-hmm.
of doing things and actually what isn't right for me, you know. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's about, I suppose, my understanding of what you're saying is that it's choosing the opportunities because they're right for you rather than because you feel you should be putting yourself out there and taking more opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That does make sense. I do think introversion so interesting when you do have to put yourself out there as a business owner. And I suppose it is taking those small steps, isn't it? And pushing yourself gently out of your comfort zone, but then taking the time afterwards to recover with time on your own.
Yeah. Are you an introvert? Do you think of
I'm
yourself
very
as an...
interesting. When I've done sort of any sort of introversion, extroversion tests, I fall around about 50-50.
Oh, okay.
So I do definitely value their time on my own, but I also really get energized by time with people. So I'm a real mixed bag. It's very much half and half for me.
Yeah.
And I really value one-to-one conversations over and above group conversations, which I think is often the case for those who fall in between. Um, I find that for me, one-to-one interaction works so much better than me. And in a group, I will always find a person to talk to. And if I'm in a group conversation, I will generally try and detach from that and find one person to talk to because that's much more my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. Fabulous. Well, we've heard all about your motivation for having your own business. It was very much for you about having that opportunity to home educate your children and to spend the time with them as well. Would you say that there are any particularly good bits of advice that you have been given since you started your business that you would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads. One of the things, and for me especially, I needed to hear and need to hear still, is what other people think of you is none of your business. Because I have been such a kind of warrior in my life, like allowing fear to stop me. I mean, fear has not stopped me, but fear has stopped me as well, right?
Mm.
And I think, gosh, if only I didn't care about what so and so thought, I would have done this or I would have done that.
Mm.
And I think when I take that attitude, that what other people think of me is none of my business, then I can be free. It's really about being free to be me.
Mm.
You know, like it's all in my head. It's a story that I'm telling myself. And I don't need to tell myself that story. Like, I don't need to tell myself that story. I can stop it
Mm.
and I can do the things that I feel like I need to do.
Mm. It's such a good bit of advice.
By taking that advice. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I think it's really worth remembering, isn't it, that other people's perception of you is based on the rose-tinted glasses through which they see the world. Everyone's thoughts on you, opinions on you, what they think of you, it's all their own perception. It's not a reflection on you as an individual. It's a reflection on how they think and what their values are and how they've experienced the world in the past,
Yeah.
and not actually about you as an individual. Everyone will have their own perception and their own take on everything we do, and there are people who will be your kind of people and will vibe with what you do and will understand you and will relate to you. And there are people who won't. And that's something that's, yeah, I think that's brilliant advice and something that's taken me quite a long time to not worry about what other people think. I'm just going to be myself and stop worrying because
Yeah.
we spend so much energy, don't we, worrying about what
Yes.
others think, and it takes up so much of our mental capacity. And if you can let that go, I think it's really empowering again.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
That's a brilliant piece of advice. Thank you for that one, Sarah. Do you also have a favorite tool that you use within business that you would recommend for others?
Well, I do practically all of my online work on Zoom. I mean, I love Zoom, but I also I think it's great because, like we're on Zoom right now, we can see each other,
Hmm.
and um it just works, right? If I
Hmm.
want to connect with someone, I could have a phone call, but actually seeing people is better for me.
Hmm.
And the other thing that I use is Telegram. So like in my um communities, like I've got a book club community, I've got a mastermind community, and so it's a little bit like WhatsApp, but it's more private than WhatsApp. And so we connect on Telegram, and that's been really, really great too. I love Telegram.
What makes it more private than WhatsApp? I'm interested by that.
Well, I think that it doesn't take all of your information like WhatsApp can. I mean, WhatsApp is connected to Instagram and Facebook, right?
Hmm.
So it's all there. It's all kind of linked in together, and whereas Telegram's not.
Mm.
There's no advertising on Telegram.
No affiliations to other big organizations, I suppose.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, no, I've heard of Telegram being used, and actually, I was looking on. I use Down Detector quite a lot if something is not working. And actually, yesterday it was my son was playing on one of the games he likes to play, and it wasn't working. So I went on Down Detector, and there was no issues showing on his game. So clearly a connection issue at this end. But I was looking on there and it was showing me that Telegram was down, and it actually got my interest yesterday. And I thought, what? I know that Telegram is a communication channel, and I've heard people talking about it and heard of it, but I don't really know much about it. So that's quite a good insight. So it's a place where you have communities, do you, in there, and you're able to share as a community and have conversational groups going on.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it acts quite like WhatsApp does,
Mm.
and yeah, like you can pin posts if you want. You can set up. Well, you don't even have to. It can be completely anonymous as well. I
Okay.
think, um, if you wanted to be, and yeah, I find it really, really great.
And can you share files and images in the same sort of way that you can in
Yeah.
WhatsApp?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm going to have to check that one out. I've heard a few people talking about having their coaching platform, using it as a coaching platform. So I
Mm.
think
Yeah.
that sounds like a good opportunity to look at. And that's a good tip for a tool for people to use potentially. And
Yeah.
likewise, I love Zoom. I'm with you on Zoom. I mean, obviously, I think the whole world started to become aware of Zoom during COVID, didn't they? But prior to that, I was using Zoom quite a lot already. I
Yeah.
find it really useful for conversations like this, but also for group conversations, for group meetings. It's such a fantastic platform, and the quality. I mean, it's obviously dependent on the internet connection, but as long as you've got a decent internet connection at both ends, then the quality of the recordings and the calls are always really good. And it's a great place for me. I use it now as you said to record my podcast episodes, but it's great for meetings. And the fact that we are maybe a 5.5 hour drive away from each other, yet we're able to sit here and have a conversation.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's such a wonderful thing to be able to do, and such a wonderful tool and opportunity to be able to talk to other people wherever they are in the world. And I think it does explode the potential and the possibility for having those one-to-one connections and meetings with people that can really grow your business. So it's not just face-to-face meetings that you have to have with people, particularly for something like coaching.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Fantastic. Thank you. You did already mention a book by Bob Proctor that really inspired you. Would you say that would be your recommended book choice for mums in business, or do you have any other particular favorites that you'd like to share with us?
I'd like to I was just having a look around to see if I have the book near me, but I don't. Um The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. I mean, it's just a brilliant book. We're actually reading it in my book club at the moment.
Fantastic.
And the first time I read it was about that time when I started learning about Bob Proctor.
Yeah.
Uh, in fact, the guy who was like my mentor in that company, he recommended three books. That was one of them. The other was uh, God, Think and Grow Rich,
Hmm.
and The Greatest Networker in the World.
Oh, I haven't heard
Uh,
of that one. Think and Grow
that,
Rich is Napoleon Hill, isn't it?
yeah,
And Stephen Covey is The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Is that right?
yeah, that's right. I
Mm.
mean, it's such a brilliant book. I think like the whole world would change if we actually implemented. Oh, my cat's right here and stepping on the keyboard. Um, if we implemented everything in that book, we would have a really, really different world. Like it would be a really outstanding world that we live in. So I think that, if you reading it is one thing, implementing it into your life is another. And
Yes.
yeah, so
I have read it. I don't feel like I implemented it as much as I could have done, but actually you've inspired me to maybe go back to it and have another read and try and I think every time you read a book, you take on board different things depending on
yeah.
where you are. And I find I go back quite regularly to reading the 5 a.m. Club. It's
Mm,
one of my favorites, and I don't generally read books more than once, but that one just keeps drawing me back. And every single time I listen to the book, and I tend to do my reading on, or my self-development books I listen to on Audible, whereas my book club books for I'm part of the Village Book Club quite recently, and I use that's all fictional books, so I physically read physical books for that. But my self-development I always do on Audible, and I do find going back to some books can be really beneficial, and you do just hear completely different things every single time, depending on where you are on your journey. So yeah, I think that would be a good one for me to revisit. And the third one, sorry, you said was a networking book.
it was called The Greatest Networker in the World. And actually, when I read that book, I cried. I like
Oh,
literally like it, I felt so emotional reading that book. It's a very thin, short book.
yeah,
And I just thought, it was something about me, obviously why I cried, but I I I cried because I realized that I didn't want to be living the life that I had been living. Like was really ready to be somebody different,
yeah,
and really, I was really ready to change.
absolutely. And do you know who that one is by?
Yeah, John M. Fogg. That's his name. Book by John M. Fogg.
John M. Fogg. Fantastic. Thank you. We'll have to have a look for that one. That's a new one on me. And I'm a big fan of networking. I love networking. I met you through not a face-to-face networking group, but an online networking group where you were the guest speaker last month. I'm going to be the guest speaker this month. But through
Yeah.
the actual Facebook page associated with that group, that was how we met. So although we haven't met face to face, apart from on Zoom like this, it's a great way. Networking is just a great way to grow your business. It's fantastic, and I'm a huge advocate of networking. I love face to face networking, but actually the relationships that you can make through online networking as well can be fantastic. So yeah, that's definitely
Mm.
going to be added to my wish list. So thank you for that recommendation.
Cool.
Fantastic. Before we wind up this call, please could you tell me where people can find you if they want to come and check out a bit more about your coaching and what you do and can get in touch with you? Where can we find you?
Sure. Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook. So that would be facebook.com/Sarah.McCalden. That's my page where you can connect with me. And my website is sarahmccalden.com. And I'm also on Instagram under Sarah E. McCalden. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. I've just started using LinkedIn again.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I've had an account for a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years, but I hadn't really used it. I suppose, yeah, it's been one of those things where you hear things about LinkedIn and you're like, is that, how can I use it? And I just thought, oh, Sarah, you've just got to get over it and just start using it.
Mm.
So
I haven't got over it and started using it yet. I am on LinkedIn and I pop in to clear my notifications maybe once a week. And quite often, some of the networking that I go to, that's the preferred connection point. So I connect with people on there and then I don't really engage on there at all. It's not my preferred network of choice. And it's one I would at some point like to start focusing on, but now is not the right time for me. But definitely, I will make sure that all of those links are in the show notes so that if anyone does want to connect with you on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or through your website, they can find out where you are.
Brilliant. And well, I actually just going on the whole subject of speaking that we've been talking about. I'm hosting my first in-person live event.
Fantastic.
It's going to be on the 28th of September, Saturday, the 28th of September in London, in King's Cross.
Lovely.
And it's called Pathway to Freedom, Journey to Financial Wellness.
Wonderful.
So if people want to learn more about that, that's on my website. And
that
go
sounds
on
fabulous.
my social media things, you'll be hearing about it.
Wonderful. That sounds absolutely brilliant. Thank you for letting us know about that. I won't be able to attend that. It's my father's birthday and we already have plans, I'm afraid. But that's a shame. You'll have to keep us updated if there's any more in the future.
Thanks.
That sounds fabulous. I'll make sure we get that shared on our socials as well once that's going out on yours. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today and for your insights, Sarah. It's been really lovely chatting to you and hearing about your journey. And it sounds like some sort of real breakthrough moments for you. And hopefully some of our listeners can take some inspiration from that and look into their mindset and what works for them and maybe check out what you do as well. So thank you for spending some time with us today.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us here at Business Foundations for Mums. You can find all of our episodes, show notes and blog posts at businessfoundationsformums.co.uk and you can follow us on Instagram or Facebook.